We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Ayin Amud Aleph in Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 170a. On the previous summer, there was a machlokes tanoim between Rebbe and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Let's say a person, he can prove that a piece of property is his with a shtar, but he also has a chazaka to prove that the piece of property is his. The simple understanding is that the chazaka we are referring to is a cheskas gimel shanim, that he's been there long enough to establish a chazaka on the property. So Rebbe says that the shtar is what is used to prove that the property is his, and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says that it is the chazaka that is used to prove that the property is his. And Rav Dimi now explains the machlokas, that the machlokas between Rebbe and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel has to do with osios niknos b'mesira. And again, what that means is, let's say a buyer has a shtar that the shtar was used for a kinyan for this buyer to acquire the property, and then the buyer gives that shtar to somebody else. Now the shtar has the name of the buyer on it, but he wants to give the property to someone else by transferring the shtar. That is the question of osios niknos b'mesira. Does that create a kinyan or not? Do we say the osios, the contents of the shtar, when they're transferred over, when the person gives the piece of paper to somebody else, does that create a kinyan? And that's exactly the machlokas over here. And the Gemara continues, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel Savar, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel holds ein osios niknos b'mesira, that the contents of the shtar, the letters, so to speak, cannot be acquired by giving it over, and therefore the shtar is nothing over here, and that's why the litigant needs to use chazaka in order to prove that the property is his. But Rebbe says, osios niknos b'mesira. Rebbe says the contents of the shtar can be acquired through mesira, and therefore the shtar can be used as well. According to Rav Dimi's interpretation, Rebbe is not saying only to use shtar, but Rebbe is saying even you can use a shtar. Of course, you can use chazaka, but you can use the shtar as well. And the Rashbam explains, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Savar ein osios niknos b'mesira. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel holds that the contents of the shtar cannot be acquired through mesira. V'hilkach, and therefore tzarich eidei chazaka. You need witnesses that see that the person made a chazaka. Now here the Rashbam seems to be understanding that the chazaka we are talking about is not a cheskas gimel shanim, but it's actually that witnesses saw that he made a kinyan chazaka. He worked the land. He did something that allowed him to acquire the field. Dekevan damar leidach lechazeku kani. Since the other party said go and make a chazaka and acquire, v'yesh lo edim shehechzik ba, and there are edim that he made that chazaka kana, that is an acquisition. The karka niknas bekesef o b'shtar mechiru matana o bechazaka, because a person can acquire land either with money or with a document or with a kinyan chazaka. V'hachi kam Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, and according to this understanding, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel is saying nidon bechazaka v'lo b'shtar, that it's chazaka that should be used and not the shtar. According to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, the shtar will not work because again ein osios niknos b'mesira. That's what the Gemara means when it says that Rav Shimon ben Gamliel holds ein osios niknos b'mesira, and Rebbe holds osios niknos b'mesira. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Abaye said back to him, he said to Rav Dimi, Imkei, and if that's the case, if you're interpreting that this is a machlokas about osios niknos b'mesira, so then plugsa ledamar, then you're really arguing with Rabba, because we said on the previous summer that according to Rabba says that Rav Shimon ben Gamliel holds that osios are niknos b'mesira, and you're contradicting that. You're saying according to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel that ein osios niknos b'mesira. Amar le said back to him, V'siflok, fine, let it be that I'm arguing. What's the difference? Amar le said back to him, no, hachi k'amina lach. Here's what I'm saying to you. Masnisa, that brisa on the previous summer, Rabba didn't just say that for no reason. Rabba said that based on a brisa. That earlier brisa that we had in the previous summit, lo metarza elakid metarza mar. The only way we can explain it is the way that the masters, the way that Rabba explained it. You have to say that it means that Rav Shimon ben Gamliel holds osios niknos b'mesira. And if so, kasha Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, according to your explanation, we have a contradiction within Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. And the Rashbam explains, Amar le Abaye le Rav Dimi. Abaye said to Rav Dimi, if so, plugsa devarecha ledamar. You're arguing with what the master said, with what Rabba said. Shiamar Rabba lamala, because Rabba said earlier, this was talking about the case where a person wants to give back the property. He received the property and he wants to give it back by giving over the shtar. And Rabba explained that Rav Shimon osios niknos b'mesira, that's the pshat. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says you can give it back because osios are niknos b'mesira. V'ata omer Rav Shimon ein osios niknos b'mesira, and you're saying according to Rav Shimon that osios are not niknos b'mesira. And again, Rav Dimi said back, what's the difference if I argue? But Abaye said no. The whole point is the only way to explain that brisa earlier is to say Rav Shimon ben Gamliel holds osios niknos b'mesira, and therefore you can't say that over here Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says ein osios niknos b'mesira, and so therefore Abaye offers a different explanation. Elamar Abaye, rather Abaye says hacha b'may askinon. Here, what are we talking about with the machlokas between Rebbe and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel? Kegon shenimsa echad mehen karov apostle. The issue is that the document, it has some kind of disqualification. The witness is either they're a relative or it's a disqualified disqualified witness, and so therefore that's the question of whether this star can be used. Uve plugs of the Rabbi Meir of Rebbe Lozer kamiflagi, and they are arguing about the same issue of Rabbi Meir and Rebbe Lozer. There's a general machlokus when it comes to a star. How does a star become a star? Is it through the signatures, or is it through the Eidei Mesira, the witnesses that see the star being given over? Rebbe Savar Lo Rebbe Lozer. Rebbe holds like Rebbe Lozer, the Amar Eidei Mesira Karti, who say that it's the Eidei Mesira, the witnesses who see the giving of a star, that make it a star, and that's why Rebbe is saying that you use the star over here, meaning the star is effective. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Savar Lo Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel he holds like Rabbi Meir, the Amar Eidei Chasima Karti, who says that it's the Eidei Chasima, the signatures, those witnesses who make it a star, and therefore according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel the star is not good, and that's why Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says that Chazaka has to be used and not the star. But the Gemara continues, this explanation cannot be true. But didn't Rabbi Abba say, Moda Rabbi Lozer admits, that if it's forged from within, Shehu Pasal, that it's disqualified. What that means is, when Rabbi Lozer says Eidei Mesira Karti, that means if there's a document with no witnesses signed on it, and you have Eidei Mesira, the Eidei Mesira create the star. But if you have a document with witnesses that are bad, let's say it's relatives or disqualified witnesses, it doesn't matter if you have Eidei Mesira, it's still not a good document. So you can't possibly say that according to Rebbe Lozer, we're talking here about a document with disqualified witnesses, and it's okay because Eidei Mesira Karti. That explanation will not work because that's what we call Mezuyef Mitocho. Elo Amar Rabbi Avina, rather Rabbi Avina says, Rashbam has the girsa of Ravina. Rashbam also said earlier in the Mesechet that Ravina's name actually was Rabbi Avina. In any case, Rabbi Avina says, Hakol Modim, everybody agrees. Shem Kasabo, who's Ka'aknu Leidusan Shaleidim, Vinimsis Eidusan Mezuyefes. Everybody agrees that if it's written in the document that we check the status of these witnesses and the status of this testimony is considered to be a forgery, that's just a way of saying everybody agrees that if you have bad signatures on a star, Shehu Pasal. Everyone agrees it's disqualified. Even Rabbi Lozer, who says Eidei Mesira Karti, would certainly say that's disqualified. Kid Rabbi Abba, just like Rabbi Abba says, the concept of Mezuyef Mitocho. Lo nechliku ela b'shtar she'ein olav edim klal. Actually, what's happening over here with the machlokus between Rebbe and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is simply the case of the machlokus Rabbi Meir and Rebbe Lozer. We're talking about a document with no witnesses at all. The Rebbe Savar Lok Rebbe Lozer, Damar Eidei Mesira Karti. Rebbe holds like Rebbe Lozer that Eidei Mesira create the star, so it's a good star. That's why you are able to use the star in this case. For Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Savar Lok Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel holds like Rabbi Meir, Damar Eidei Chasima Karti, who says Eidei Chasima Karti, and there are no Eidei Chasima on this document, and that's why you have to use the Chazaka. And the Gemara continues, V'boy same, if you want, I could say another explanation to explain what the machlokus is between Rebbe and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. It could be b'mod b'shtar shekasvu tzarich l'kaimo kamiflagi. They're arguing about mod b'shtar shekasvu, whether you need to certify the star. The case of mod b'shtar shekasvu is a situation where a person takes out a star and the other party admits that it's a good star. It's not a forged star, but for some other reason there's some disqualification why the star is not relevant to the case. So in such a situation where the litigant admits that it's a good star, there's a machlokus whether it needs to be certified at all. The Rebbe holds mod b'shtar shekasvu ein tzarich l'kaimo, that if the other party admits that the star was written properly, there's no need for the person who produces the star to certify it, and that's why Rebbe says the star is perfectly good because the other party admitted that the star was good, even though the other party had some other claim. For Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel holds tzarich l'kaimo, no, since the other party is still disputing what the star says, even if he admits it's not a forged star, but still, since he's disputing it, therefore there is a need for certification, and that's what Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel means when he says not to use the star. But the Gemara continues, V'ibcha shamina lehu, but you're now saying that Rebbe is the one that holds ein tzarich l'kaimo, and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel holds tzarich l'kaimo, but we see the exact opposite in the following. The Tanya, as we learned in a Brisa, shnayim adukin b'shtar. The case over here is two people are grabbing a star. Now, generally speaking, if the malva, if the lender has the star, it means that he has not yet collected the debt, and he's able to still collect. And if it's the lova that has the star, it means he's already paid it up, or it means there never was a loan. So here you have a situation where two people are holding the star, the malva and the lova. Malva omer shalihu, the malva says it's my star. V'nafal mimeni, it fell from me. Umitzaso, and then it was found. V'lova omer shalcho, and the lova admits, he says it was your star. However, uparativlach, but I already paid you back, and that's why you did not have possession. It fell from me. So in this situation, it's exactly a case of moda b'shtar shekasvu. The lova admits that the star is a real star. The lova just says that really he already paid it off. And so the Brisa continues, Yiskayim hashtar b'chosma of divrei Rebbe. Rebbe says that the shtar, it needs to be, you need to certify the signatures on the shtar. Here you see that Rebbe seems to say, tzarech l'kaimo, again contradicting what we just said above. And Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, Omer yachloku, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, no, you don't need to certify the shtar. And therefore it's like any situation where you have two sides holding something, and we say split it. In this case, split it would mean that the malva just collects half of the debt. And the Gemara continues, V'havinon ba. Now we asked on this machlokas, because the Gemara, although we've just explained the machlokas, the Gemara now will explain exactly what the machlokas is. We asked on this, V'leslei the Rebbe hadetanan, when Rebbe says, Yiskayim hashtar, doesn't he hold of the idea of splitting it? Doesn't he hold of the Mishnah which says, Shnayim ochzim betalis, when two people hold a talis, Ze omer ani mitzasiyah, this one says, I found it. The other one says, I found it. Then this one swears that he doesn't have less than half. The other one also swears that he doesn't have less than half and splits it. Meaning, shouldn't Rebbe also agree of yachloku? Everybody agrees when two people are holding something, we say yachloku. V'yamar Rav, Amar Rav Nachman, and Rav says that Rav Nachman says, if we were talking here about a shtar that was certified, you're right, everybody would agree we split it. Ki pligi, the whole machlokas here, like we just explained, we're talking about a situation where it was not certified. Rebbe Savar Mod B'shtar Shakasvu Tzarech L'Kaimo. Rebbe says that if a person, the other party, admits that the shtar was written properly, there is still a need for certification. V'im Mekayim Lei, and Rebbe just means that if you certify it, Gavi Palga, then half can be collected. V'ilo Chasva B'Almu, if not, it's nothing. It's like a mere shard, and you can't use that document. But Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Savar, and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel holds Mod B'shtar Shakasvu Ein Tzarech L'Kaimo. When the other party admits that the shtar was written properly, there's no need for certification, and that's what he means by v'yachloku. Therefore, he says you split it, and again we have a contradiction now in terms of Moda B'shtar Shakasu within the Shita of Rebbe, and within the Shita of Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. And the Gemara continues and answers, in order to answer this contradiction, Epoch simply reversed the opinions. It's not Rebbe who says Moda B'shtar Shakasu Tzarech L'Kaimo in this price. It's the opposite. Rebbe's the one that says Yachloku, and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is the one that says Moda B'shtar Shakasu Tzarech L'Kaimo. That's how you can resolve the contradiction. And the Gemara continues, V'ba Yisem, if you want, I could say another answer. Liolam lo sepoch, there is no need to reverse anything over here. Elohacha bilavara kamiflagi. Rather, again, the machlokas Rebbe and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel that we're trying to explain in terms of whether the shtar is what is used or the chazak is used is what we call levarer. That's an issue of corroboration. We're going to explain now as follows. Ki had Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef. It's like the case of Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef. Have a masik bezuze b'Rebbe Abba. He was owed money by Rebbe Abba. Also, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, he came before Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, and Amar, and he said, Paratich b'fnei ploni uploni. He said that I actually paid you back already. I don't owe you money because I paid you back, and I paid you back in front of witnesses, so-and-so and so-and-so. They saw that I paid you back. Now, the person really did not have to pay back in front of witnesses, but he is claiming that he did pay back in front of witnesses. So the question is, when somebody advances a claim like that, do they now need to support it with evidence? Do we need to see and hear from those witnesses? Amar le Rabbi Yitzchak, so Rabbi Yitzchak said to him, Yavo ploni uploni v'yo'idu. Those individuals who are witnesses, they need to come and testify. You didn't need to pay him back with witnesses, but since you did pay that and that's what your claim is, we need to bring those witnesses to the court. Amar le said back to me, Lo asu lo mehemnina, but if they don't come, then I'm not believed. V'kaimelan, isn't the halacha, haven't we established, hamalve as chavero be'edim, that if there's a loan, a person lends money to his friend with witnesses, eino tzarech lefaro be'edim, there's no need to pay back with witnesses. I went beyond the letter of the law when I paid back with witnesses. Amar le said to him, Ano ba'hi kishmaita demar svirali, I hold like the teaching of the master. The Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Avad barav, Amar Rav, because Rabbi Abba says that Avad barav says that Rav says, Ha'omer lechaveiro paratich b'fnei ploni uploni. If somebody says to his friend that I paid you back, and I paid you back in front of so-and-so and so-and-so, there were witnesses over there, tzarech sheyavo ploni uploni v'yo'idu. So those individuals need to come, and they need to testify. And the Gemara continues, Amar le, Rabbi Abba said back to him, Rabbi Abba continued to argue that he should not have to produce those witnesses who saw him pay back the debt. V'amar Rav Gidel Amar Rav, because Rav Gidel said that Rav says, Halacha kedivrei Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. The halacha is like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. That's the same Rav Shimon ben Gamliel we're discussing. Again, the situation is, a person says he has a chazaka, that's a cheskas gimel shanim, according to this understanding right now, but he also says he can produce a shtar. So really the cheskas gimel shanim should be good enough, and the question is, do we hold of levarer? Since the person said he has a star, do we now have to corroborate that? And does he have to produce the star? And Rav said, no, he does not have to produce the star. That's what Rav Shimon ben Gamliel means when he says that the chazaka is enough. You do not need to produce the star. And we'll take a look at the Rashbam over here. Amar le Rabbi Abba said to him, V'amar Rav Gidol amar Rav halachic Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Rav Gidol said that Rav says that halacha is like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. She'amar nidon af bechazaka levado, who says that the chazaka alone is enough. To kaven de lo hayat sarich liton shtar yesh biyadi, since he didn't need to make any claim about the shtar. Me'achar shach l'shnei chazaka, since he was there enough years to establish a chazaka, the cheskas gimel shanim. Ein sarich levares devar. He doesn't need to corroborate the claim that he's making. Shahir beliton mashein sarich. He just made more claims than he needed. Va'anon nami. So Rabbi Abba is saying, I also kaven de velo edim mehemnina, since I don't even need witnesses and I would have been believed. Ein sarich levar. I don't need to corroborate that and bring the witnesses. Ulohavi edim shamarti, and to bring the edim which I mentioned. And Rabbi Abba continues to say, V'af Rebbe lo, and even Rebbe, and the Rashbam explains, V'af Rebbe lo amar ela levara, even Rebbe was just saying that it's corroboration. Kolomar min hadin, what he means to say is as follows. According to the strict law, halacha Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, the halacha is like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, that again, you don't need to bring that added evidence. Sha'af Rebbe lo nechlak ela mishum desvira lei, because even Rebbe who argued with Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, the only reason he argues is because he holds the sarach levares devarav acharei shatan yesh li shtar. The person should corroborate his words if he already said I have a shtar. The Rebbe mode, then Rebbe himself admits Shem Lotan that if he made no such claim, lo hayatzarach ela chazaka levada, all he needs is the chazaka. V'kevan de lo have pluksayu ela kadei levarer, and since the whole machlokas just is whether or not the person needs to corroborate, nirin divrei Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, it appears that Rav Shimon ben Gamliel is correct. She'ein lo lahafsid b'shvil svas yes, or why should a person lose out just because he said something extra that he did not need to say? And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Amid Beis.